Welcome to the Miller Report, Real Clear Journalism. I'm Maggie Miller. I am joined now by Damion Shelton, the co-founder and board chairman of Agility Robotics. Thanks for sitting down with me today.
Sure.
Can we talk a little bit about the skills trade labor in your industry of all kinds? Can we talk about if there is that enough, or if you're finding it harder to find people who can do the labor?
So in warehousing and logistics, which is where Agility has deployed its robots, there's a huge labor gap, and particularly on the material handling side of things. So if you're ever interested in doing a deep dive on fun government statistics, you can look at freight and material movers, hand, which is what the BLS uses to refer to people who carry stuff around warehouses. And there's about 1 million unfilled positions in those roles in the US. So just the US, just people carrying stuff around inside a warehouse by hand. And so great job for robots.
Enter technology, right? So with technology entering that space, then market applications and timings for robots can amplify what humans do, and they can do things. What jobs can the robots do, and what can't they do?
So virtually any task, which is get some object, helps if it's in a container, a bin, or a box. But really any object, move it from point A to point B. Point A could be arbitrarily complicated, point B can be arbitrarily complicated. But we're focusing on things that you could do wearing winter gloves, kind of dexterity. So not super fine dexterity finger tasks, not assembly at this point with the robots, but really bulk material moving.
So this conference was centered around affordability. People might hear robots and they do not think necessarily affordable off the rip, but how will this help contribute to an affordable energy future?
So a lot of the infrastructure built out contains both skilled trades, so think welding, and not as skilled trades, think carrying the materials to a site for welding. Typically when you enter a trade, you start at the bottom. I have a nephew who's a professional welder, and he happens to work in an indoor environment. For outdoor stuff, there's a lot of just bulk material handling. I happened to be on a construction site in the UK about a month ago, and a lot of that work is unpacking and sorting metal stuff that you're bolting together. UK in early April, not the best weather in the world, and so anything that can offset the labor task of just moving stuff around, let the people focus on the more interesting part of the task is helpful.
What is a misconception you feel like the general public has, and what's something that you want to let people know?
I think a lot of the press has focused on robot butlers because they're very charismatic. So the idea is the robot's going to cook you dinner and do laundry for you. And that will happen at some point someday. There's so much low-hanging fruit on these industrial and commercial sort of automation-ish tasks. At a grocery store, unpack all of the Tide laundry soap and put it on a shelf. In a factory where you need 500 very heavy bolts to assemble something, have a robot carry that stuff for you. So I think simultaneously there's this view that, well, we'll all have robots out of the Jetsons at some point in the 2030s, ignoring the fact that all the robots that are here today can actually be doing very productive work.
And what is the energy appetite for a robot?
In terms of how much power the robot uses? Yeah, actually, interesting math. So it actually makes me kind of happy because it just means physics is true. It's always nice when physics is true. So a person that's doing a heavy labor task will produce about a couple hundred watts of power in their body. If you're just sitting around, it's about 70 watts, I think. If you're biking really hard, 300 or 400 watts. Robot actually uses about the same amount, so 300 or 400 watts when it's walking around doing something useful. So over the course of, say, a 20-hour shift, which is more than you or I would want to work, use 7 or 8 kilowatts of power, which is nothing remarkable by electricity standards.
Interesting. Anything else you'd like to add?
Just that, I think what's missed with a lot of the dialogue is the extent to which these robots really are task-focused, not job-focused. So these robots are coming for the tasks, they're not coming for the jobs. So if you're on a roofing site, the robot would help you carry the shingles. It's not going to be doing precision nailing at this point, or flashing work, or working on gutters. In a factory, it's going to be doing the bulk material handling. It's not going to be doing the interesting part of the job like wiring or tasks like that. Some of that will phase in over time. Some of it may never end up being roboticized. And I think this looks a lot like agriculture. Farmers these days are information jockeys as much as they are anything else. And the stat that I always use for this when I give talks is there are more farmers working post-2020 in the US by absolute employment than there were in 1820. So the net job loss over a 200-year period in farming was 0. It just happened to evolve. Farmers grow 100 times more food per farmer than they did in the 1800s. Same thing will happen long term with all these other applications.
definitely an interesting part of our evolution. Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, thanks.
That was it for the Miller Report, Real Code Journalism. I'm Maggie Miller. I'll see you next time.